Joshua Dudley, and I am the writer, director, and executive producer of Stab 6, and I also play a version of myself in Stab 6. My character in Stab 6 doesn't survive very long. Aside from him being in the costume, once he actually takes off the mask, I think I have about 2 minutes of screen time before I get my throat slit by another killer. So my character in Stab 6 doesn't exist much, and that was for a reason. I really wanted to be able to focus on being more behind the camera in Stab 6. And instead of having to set up shots and hope that I'm in them properly, I really wanted to have a lot more control because I'm a control freak. So I decided to kill my character off in Stab 6.
Hi, I'm Rachel Alexandria Arnold, and I was assistant director, executive producer, and I played Rachel Alexandria Arnold in Stab 6. So in Stab 6, the character of Rachel gets an upgrade. I call her Rachel 2.0 because she quit at the end of Stab 5, and she's decided that now that Josh is dead, she's gonna kind of take over. And she does so with a lot of determination and grace that we haven't seen from that character before.
The partnership of Rachel and Kylie is great to me. It was interesting to kill myself off and then have to try to search for a replacement for me to be Rachel's partner in crime in this. And I felt like it had to be someone that is the complete opposite of Rachel in her personality. And that's definitely even Heidi in real life. So casting Heidi as Kylie Scott and deciding to expand that role, I think was such a great idea, and that's where it came from. Like I said, she was only in 2 little clips in Stab 5, and then that was it, and she wasn't supposed to be anything else. But when I needed a replacement for me, I originally thought of writing in like a younger version of me that was like Rachel's bitch, but I felt like Rachel still needed someone to challenge her, and a character like that wouldn't challenge her. So the idea to turn Kylie into Gale, essentially from Scream, was too good to resist, I think. Rachel's character needed someone to piss her off, to continue to drive her throughout the movie, because Josh was always screaming at her. So Kylie pisses Rachel off, but in a very, very different way. Kylie tries to take control, and Rachel doesn't like her ideas, and Rachel's in control, so she doesn't like that Kylie's trying to take any form of control at all. So it kind of becomes this power battle throughout the whole movie that only Rachel's character knows is going on, and Kylie's kind of oblivious to it, which is what I like about her, because the Kylie character is intelligent and powerful and obviously quick to act on her actions and resourceful, but Rachel's always kind of one-upping her, and Kylie doesn't know it because Kylie's character is also a little stupid. And Kylie's character actually didn't really test too well with people, and that was interesting for me. Like I said, she's based on Gale, so she's supposed to kind of be a bitch, but I think she's a bitch to the wrong people, and I don't think the audience liked that too much. So after Stab 6, we knew that Rachel and Kylie had a partnership, but Rachel knew for a long time that I was planning on killing off the Kylie character. Heidi didn't know this, however, Heidi never came back for another Stab movie, so maybe she did know deep down somewhere that I was going to kill Kylie in the opening of the next movie.
Stephanie Maheu, I play Shannon Nightingale in Stab 6. So Stab 6 is a little more crazy than Stab 5. We start with my character is dealing with a lot because my boyfriend in Stab 5, Chris Dube, was the killer and he was trying to kill me. So I have these horrible nightmares that he's coming to get me still. Josh is dead. I don't really know where I am in the world. I don't know who to trust. And I also don't want to not ask for help. So I end up getting on a lot of different medications to help my issues with anxiety, depression, and like compulsive disorder. I'm always checking to see if anyone's following me. My character from Stab 5, she was more of a sidekick, and as we move into Stab 6, I'm now a main girl, beefy, which I really liked. And I leaps and bounds, my character went from like this, happy sunshine person that didn't seem like anything really ever bad happened till the very end of Stab 5. You're coming to terms with your world is shit. I mean, when you can't trust a person that's your lover, and they're trying to get you, it just seems like it's a game. Like, who the hell do you trust? And I think that's where my bond comes in with Rachel, because she just seems like she's my rock. Until...
Production on Stab 6, I think, was super hyped up compared to every other movie that we had done so far. It was also probably one of the most well-planned out of all of our films because we had a very tight time constraint. Stab 4 was super, super successful on YouTube, and Stab 5 just surpassed it, and we didn't think that it was going to have such a big response. So Stab 6 we knew had to be bigger and better and gorier and scarier and funnier and crazier all at the same time. So I had all of these ideas flowing around after Stab 5, and I bounced around with so many of them, and we had killed off so many of the cast that trying to continue the idea of killing off the cast of Stab 4 was kind of difficult because there wasn't that many of them left. And some of the ones that were left, we couldn't actually get to come back for production. So you'll notice there's a scene later on in the movie with Dylan that she kind of reveals several characters that are dead. One that died of a heart attack, 2 that died in a car crash, and 1 that's in hiding, because we couldn't get them to come back for the movie. Jennifer Sue Mallard was actually originally intended to be the opening victim of Stab 6, and we were trying to continue the theme of killing off our lead girls. We wrote this big, long, extended opening where her and I are kind of watching a movie and discussing the next Stab movie, and I go a little nutso and kill her off, and you find out that I'm actually connected to the killers from Stab 5, that I was working with Chris and Steve's characters to kill everybody. And I kind of continue it with her, and it's this big, long torture scene, and we couldn't get Jen to come back. Jen is not a huge fan of horror movies, which we discussed in the Stab 5 interviews, and kind of in Stab 5 you kind of understand that in real life Jen doesn't necessarily lean in the horror direction. So we couldn't get her to come back, and I had to rewrite the opening. And like I said, there were very few people that were still alive from Stab 4 that could be killed off, but Laura and Adam were not in Stab 5 at all. So we were able to talk them into coming back, and they were still together in real life, and they were living together, and they were really getting engaged and planning their wedding and all this other kind of crazy stuff. I kind of just wrote an opening scene based around their real life. I even wrote in the fact that Adam didn't want me at their wedding, which wasn't true. It was just like a little poke at me. I like to have fun, and I'm very self-deprecating because I can be loud and controlling. So he did have a little line that he wasn't happy that I wasn't coming to the wedding, and Laura had to confess to him that she invited me. And then they get the phone call and they get all freaked out. They're actually watching a Stab movie. They're watching Stab 6 in Stab 6 to start Stab 6, which is crazy. But I just wanted it to make sense in the Stab universe that Stab 6 was Stab 6, and that's why we saw these characters from the real Stab 6 that was inside of Scream 4, even though we were inside of our Stab 6, which was for YouTube. Does that make sense to everyone? So Laura and Adam are watching Stab 6. They get the phone call, and the killer comes out, and Adam has one of my favorite death scenes where he gets stabbed up through the throat, and I love that death scene. I think it's great. And then Laura and I have this big fight, and fun fact, I'm in the costume. I stab Adam in the throat, and then I attack Laura, and I do the little flip, and then I chase Laura to the staircase, and then from that point on, the killer in the costume is actually Christian Ryan, who is another cast member from the movie, and he plays the killer for the rest of that sequence, and he also plays the zombie face killer that kills me. This again was another attempt to get me more behind the camera so that I could have more control over the shots and see what was going on, but Rachel was very, very heavily involved again in this, and she filmed a lot of the opening of Stab 6 as well, including some of the best shots, like the weird angle down the staircase that we see when Laura's getting killed and stuff. Rachel had to like lay on her back to film that. It was so funny because we were in the style of this house was the staircase was really tight and really, really steep. So Rachel got some really cool shots out of that. Laura's character dies, and I pull off the mask and reveal me, and that I've been plotting it, and that I filmed the murders, and then I get a phone call from the killer, and then I get my throat slit, and that's the opening scene of Stab 6.
So aside from the character development in Stab 6, personally, in real life, I got development too. In the opening scene where Laura and Adam die, I actually handled a lot of the camera work. And we filmed in an actual house, not in a set, so we had the challenge of filming around, walls and stairs and doors and trying to get good shots. Especially, I remember, Adam's was probably a little easier to film in that regard, but Laura's was very difficult. Her scene in the stairs and her dying in the stairs was probably one of the most physically challenging things to film. I think I was bent over upside down like laying down the stairs backwards so that I could get an appropriate angle of Laura, and I honestly wish that there was footage of it because it had to be hysterical to watch. I had to keep shifting, and I literally was hanging upside down to film, and so it was a lot of growth for me outside of my character too.
We got very lucky with the cast, and we didn't have a lot of drawbacks with like people quitting and stuff like that, and I think everyone that was in it was really committed to making it the best that it could be. The biggest negative of Stab 6 was that for the third time we changed cameras, and we bought what we thought was a better camera than the first two that we had. And it turns out in some ways it was, and in some ways it wasn't. In the sunshine, this thing did gorgeous shots, so we loved filming outside with it. Like the shot of the Kylie character and the Corey character walking up to the crime scene after the opening is one of my favorite shots because it's just got this beautiful sunlight glowing off of them and it looks so nice. But then as things get darker, it's trickier to work with the camera and it gets grainier, which happens on all cameras, but there's no way to adjust that camera we were using. And the camera still didn't have a way to attach microphones to it or keep a separate audio system running. So everybody still had to project, and the audio in Stab 6, man, if we could just mute that whole movie and go back and dub in all the lines, at this point I think I would, because there's so much I love about Stab 6, but the audio is so bad, and I'm so sorry to all of you watching it. Like, we tried everything. We even tried running it through filters and stuff to fix the audio, and it just, we couldn't save it. We couldn't save it at all. Some of it's okay, but there are a lot of scenes that you're like, there's so much background noise I can't hear anyone. We're sorry, we know. The audio sucks in Stab 6.
Hi, I'm Laura Coleman, and I played a pretty close version of myself in Stab 6. I was not in Stab 5, but I was able to be in Stab 6. I had a lot going on in my life around that time, and so Josh offered me to be the opening kill. I ended up being the second to die, but it was a pretty fun scene to film. I was able to do it at my home, and that's always the best. Very comfortable, got anything I could need there. What wasn't comfortable was part of that scene. I did run up into the attic. That attic has always creeped me out, and that day was no exception. I was like, seriously, run up there? But yeah, it definitely was the best thing to do. Not that I personally would run up the stairs. I would probably run outside if it was me. That's why it's a version of myself. But it was a really fun day. So the opening scene, Adam and I are in our living room, and we're watching Stab movie. I think it was our anniversary in the movie that day. So we're talking about that, and I get a phone call, and it was the creepy voice, the killer. Adam, his lines that day were definitely challenging for him. It was a lot of fun though overall. I think a lot of laughs, a lot of retake. So probably all my laughter at him having to retake his lines over, that might have jinxed me a little bit, because I had to go up into that attic and out of that attic and up in the attic and out of the attic like a bazillion times, because I would come around the corner, I would look straight at the camera. It was like over and over. I don't know why I couldn't get it through my head. I would come around like, where's the camera? So if that wasn't bad enough, part of the reason I was looking for the camera all the time was because the camera was kind of moving around trying to get the best angle, and there was a couple times I came out and the camera was here, I was down here. So it was into the attic, out of the attic, into the attic, out of the attic. So that was pretty funny. So I think between me and Adam, we took a little bit of time to film that scene, but it was a lot of fun. I think it came out really good. In the Stab 6 movie, I am a version of myself, not having a lot of acting experience. Once again, Josh did write the scene to match my life as closely as he could. I do think I come across maybe a little more bitchy in the movie, and so I had to kind of reach outside of my comfort zone. Not for the bitchiness, I mean, I can handle that, but I think for the death scene, I had to scream and wiggle around and just be really like, not outgoing, but more extroverted than my natural self at the time. So those stairs in that scene where I die, those stairs were literally like angled just straight up. So in that way, I think could have been easier, harder. You definitely don't want to fall down the stairs. And we got two people struggling and my screaming. I mean, I rewatched that screaming. It's interesting to say the least. It's not my favorite, but it was a lot of fun to film that. And Josh had to basically tell me exactly what to do as far as how to move and the knife placement, everything like that. He had to really walk me through that. So even though I had my lines down, where I was looking, where I was placing my body, what exactly I was doing with myself, I needed some help with that. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad that it was at my house. I'm glad that I was able to be part of it. Really enjoyed filming with Josh. One of my favorite parts about filming that opening scene was after Adam dies, the killer comes at me and I flip him over me on the couch. So that was, I think, a really cool idea and a lot of fun. So we filmed a couple of scenes at my house actually, or a couple different days I should say. We did my death scene in the evening, and then Josh and the crew and some new actors and actresses came over the next day to do some filming of the crime scene. And outside, I was laughing, but Josh was losing his patience a little bit. There was a lot of background noise. We would like scan the road. This was a main street that I lived on in Newmarket, New Hampshire. We would look and we'd be like, okay, there's no cars coming, go, like now, like go, go, go. Like there was no time to be like, okay, let me, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? The actors and actresses really had to be like, okay, go, and hope that a car didn't drive by. Chances are a car was going to drive by, and that happened over and over and over. I think the final cut that made it in, there were cars driving by. But you were able to hear everybody just fine, but that was pretty fun.
After they die, of course, I go to bring their characters I believe it was a wedding present, and then we run into the Kylie Scott character played by Heidi. She obviously has been in a production before, but really just cameos, and this is where she gets her real day, I would say. Rachel's character starts writing her own version of Stab 5 because it was never finished in the actual Stab 5. And so between Kylie and Rachel, we decided to create a reality TV show to cast the movie based on the script that I am writing. That was a new concept for us. It was sort of like Inception because it was reality, filming reality, filming reality. And I just remember you kind of get lost in those layers when you're filming. You don't remember, okay, is this, my character's first reality, or is this the reality TV show? And so that was always very interesting.
Rachel and Kylie invite me to be in a TV show that's a reality show with competitions, horror competitions with Stab, and I decided to play myself. Me and Kylie kind of had a little bit of a butting heads because she had brought me up negatively in her book, and she's kind of all about selling herself and her image and doesn't really care who she hurts, and my character doesn't really like that so much. But I play along, and I play along as best as I can.
As far as the Stab project goes, inside the movie I thought it was cool to have something that we were actually working on in real life too. We had something called the Stab Project where we were trying to get our fans to create individual scenes from the first Stab, and we had a bunch of different teams working on it from all over the world. It was really cool, but not all the teams finished their projects, so there are still just individual scenes from our Stab project on YouTube that you can check out, and some of them are amazing, like the end scenes from Mexico, the opening scene as a guy in drag, so it's just fantastic, and it goes places you wouldn't expect it to, and everybody did a really good job, but nobody ever finished it. But inside of Stab 6, there's something called the Stab Project as well, and that's the name of the reality TV show that they're on. And that idea was almost from Halloween Resurrection, where they all are kind of trapped and they have live feeds on them. But I wanted to make it a competition show because I love stuff like that, like America's Next Top Model and stuff. And I felt like Kylie would be hosting a show that was more like America's Next Top Model, and Rachel would be hosting something to ensure the fact that she was going to have a successful movie out of the product of this, especially if they were casting from this. the Stab project was actually a really exciting part of that movie to me, and the competitions were really cool.
Hello, Stab fans. My name is Jeff Davis. For one magical production, I played Corey Waters. I was only in one of the Stab films, one of the like 25 that they've made. I think they have more than Fast and the Furious at this point. So I was in like Ghostface Returns Part 17. How to describe Corey Waters? Well, I guess he's just, you know, your classic hopeless romantic that fell in love with a blonde in a blue dress, and she drove him to kill her. I don't know. It's to me a classic romance, and you know, he was just happy-go-lucky, just loving life, and you know, unfortunately, I don't think things turned out too well for him. You'd have to go back and watch, but I'm pretty sure he didn't make it out alive. But he didn't go down alone. And that's, in the end, with these movies, all that matters, right? So, Corey Waters equals success, equals winner. Had he survived, he probably would have gone on to do some sort of motivational speaking, maybe a male model, I don't know. I don't want to put limits on it.
Stab 6 is probably one of my favorite Stab movies that we've made so far, just because it was so different and we had so many cool tributes to our movies and to other movies and cameos from people. Like we had Chris Dube pop up for a cameo at the end there and in the middle, and that wasn't planned, so that was kind of cool that we just worked that in.
My name is Arielle Kaplan, and I had a brief cameo in Stab 6, returning as Veronica Clark from the grave. Stab 5 was the only production that I was in fully as a character, and as a brief kind of callback to one of the Scream movies where Randy shows up on videotape, Veronica shows up on a videotape as well. That was kind of cool to get this calling back from the grave sort of thing with Veronica saying things like, take this seriously, they're going to get you no matter what, you need to stay alive as much as possible because this is a serious threat. And it was great that Josh decided to bring me back because it is such a fun experience to be part of Stab. The bbest part of filming for me in Stab 6 was it was just one day. I filmed my little message from beyond the grave, and that was it, which was nice because that was when I had already moved out of the Manchester area. I was really starting to take off more in my career as an actor, so I wasn't around quite as much. And it was nice to be able to still be involved, but not have to travel and to come back and forth to be part of the production again, but still have a voice in it. So I really appreciate that. I actually didn't read the script for Stab 6 other than the part that I was in because I wanted to be surprised because Veronica is not actually a part of the story anymore. So I read the scene that I was in as a side, and then once it all got put together, I got to see how that fit into the larger story, which I really enjoyed as an audience member and as an actor. Also because I hate watching myself, and because it was filmed over a year later, you can tell that it was not actually filmed at the same time because my hair is much different between Stab 5 and Stab 6. We tried to hide that as best as we could, but the magic of peeling back the curtain of the movie making will tell you that it's different.
It was the first day of filming, and I had this camera that I was carrying around with me all the time because Corey Waters was a cameraman. So I couldn't see through it. It had no battery in it, so it was just black. So I have the camera to my eye, and the whole time we're filming, my eye is just like going everywhere. So the next day, Josh comes up to me, he's like, yeah, try not to do that. That doesn't look good. So that was kind of funny.
I think Stab 6 is also unique for us in the way that we set up the structure of the story and the way that we kind of went about production. Normally our storylines kind of follow like the main girl storyline, the friends of the main girl storyline, and then mine and Rachel's storyline. But Stab 6 had like all these storylines going on because there were so many new characters. So we were following the lead girl storyline, we were following Stephanie, who plays Shannon's storyline. Then we were following Kylie's storyline too, and Rachel's storyline, along with all the cast members' storyline of the new TV show and the storyline of Corey the cameraman.
It was just a blast. I had so much fun. So much fun making that movie. Josh and Rachel were absolute, just awesome people to be around creatively. Just a lot of fun. There was so much good energy. And the rest of the cast too. I mean, it was a huge cast, and we were all together, a lot. And the way it was shot, it almost felt like we were really doing what we were doing, which was the kind of game show, reality show. And it was fun.
And then there were also these awesome 2 side players who were a part of the cast of the TV show, played by Erica Browning and Christian Ryan, and they were Lacey and Ryan. And they were kind of like Stab-obsessed fans. They were really, really fun to work with. They were an actual couple in real life as well, and they lived in my actual apartment building, so that was even cooler too, that they could live in the same building and kind of be part of the storyline of the building as well. So there's another storyline. The building itself has its own storyline, because it's the opening scene of Stab 4. It's my headquarters, basically, in Stab 5, and it becomes Rachel's headquarters as well. And then in the same building is also where these characters, Lacey and Ryan, huge Stab fans, lived. So Ryan's character works as a crime scene photographer. He's introduced right after the opening. He's taking pictures of my dead body and other dead bodies that you don't get to see because Laura and Adam were there that day, but we didn't keep their clothing that they died in, so we couldn't redress them to show shots of their dead bodies where they were supposed to be. That was the first time we met Ryan, and then he goes home and reveals that he has stolen the Ghostface costume from the crime scene, which excites Lacey way more than it should, and then she leads him to the bedroom, and they open a closet and bam! They have masks, they have knives, they have bloody clothing worn by the victims, which was really cool because all the stuff that was actually in that closet was the real stuff that it's supposed to be. So like Amanda Constant's shirt that she got stabbed in Stab 5 is hanging in their closet, and it really was her shirt from Stab 5. Like all of the props you see in there are real, and they really are from what they say they're from. So that was really neat because we really did kind of have a shrine to our movies built inside there. Their characters were set up to be red herrings in a big way. When one of them gets eliminated from the show or when they have other interactions with their cast, they're almost always very off-putting and odd, and they challenge everybody, they say no to everybody, and they don't want to participate as much as everybody else, except for Erica's character, Lacey, is a little so stabby, fanatical that she's super excited to be, in Karen's house and stuff like that. But the way that she treats people especially should indicate that she's a little bit of a lunatic, but she's not. They both actually become victims of the killers, and the Ryan character actually tries to save the day when he dies, so they're actually pretty honorable characters. It's just a little moody, I guess.
I was having a moment upstairs, trying to figure out eeny, meeny, miny, mo on which pillow I was going to take, because at that point it was just a game to me. My character had seen enough and been through enough that she just wanted to numb most of it, and to get to bed, that meant taking multiple different prescriptions. So unfortunately, that's where we were.
This second night of shooting, we showed up to Rachel's house, I believe, and one of the actresses, I won't name names, but she showed up incredibly late, so late, 2 hours late. And so we're just filming, and it's this whole thing, and then all of a sudden there's a scene where we just bust in. Heidi and myself, we just bust in, and the other actress was on the other side of the door, and she got cranked right in the head with the door. And it was it was funny because the rest of the night she had to film with this gigantic egg right on her forehead. And I don't know if you go back and watch it, if you can actually see that, but oh man, I was laughing. I was laughing.
I was maybe 2.5, 3 hours late to filming my big beginning scene, which Josh was attacking me, and I was on the phone, and I was kind of out of sorts. I had dealt with a family emergency, so I was out of sorts, and I was trying to get a glass of water, and then I shattered it all over the floor, And Josh was like already been there, and I had brought my boyfriend at the time, and he was sleeping on the couch during all of this filming. And the filming was intense. I mean, we were running all around the house, smashing stuff over each other's faces, going up the stairs, hit my head off the banister. We get upstairs, and I like almost jumped out the window. I probably shouldn't have like gotten the window frame as much as I did. It was a little scary when we went back and looked at it, because I was just in the zone, you know what I mean? And then I did get smashed in the head by Kylie when she opened the door, which it did hurt, and probably bruised.
The Shannon character in Stab 6 gets explored a lot deeper. She wasn't, like I said, originally in Stab 5. When she died, she wasn't supposed to carry on, essentially, and we brought her back at the end because people like the character so much. And Stephanie is such a phenomenal actress that we just had to bring it up to a new level for her to make this project exciting. So, dealing with the trauma from Stab 5, the Shannon character is now addicted to pills and kind of doesn't know if she's seeing things, and it takes her a minute to kind of click back into the fact that the killings are starting again and there really is another Ghostface killer out to kill her. And Stephanie gets, like a lot of the other lead girls, gets a wonderful tribute scene to the original Scream when Sydney gets the phone call, and she reenacts a lot of that in her attack scene in Stab 6. And that attack scene was so fun to film, I can't even describe it. Stephanie killed all the lines, and I had so much fun playing the voice of the killer and then playing the killer in the costume. But it was just like such a clumsy night. Like, Stephanie and I got hurt so many times filming that scene. Not in a horrible way or anything like that, but we definitely had scrapes and bruises. I ran into an open door that I couldn't see out of my mask. Like, I turned around and ran trying to chase Stephanie and smacked into the door and then fell to the floor because I had hit my head so hard that I went straight back down. Both of us fell running up the stairs. My costume, the rope was really long, and I kept stepping on the rope and I would slide and fall down the stairs. And then the picture that she smashes over my head, the first take we did of it, she hit me clear in the face with it, and I thought we broke my nose. And then it's funny because we actually do that stunt in another Stab movie too, and both times that we do it, when she smashes the picture, the frame never breaks for some reason, and it gets stuck around the killer's neck, so the killer ends up wearing it as like a necklace for a little while, a little square black necklace. But that was such a fun attack scene to film, and there are tributes still to Sydney's attack scene in that too, because it is still based on the Sydney phone call. And we like to do a tribute like that in all of our movies, and I think it just gives the Scream fans a little something extra, like, oh, so this is how they would have done it if it was their movie. The basic rest of the idea of Stab 6 is that Stephanie, who plays the Shannon character, is kind of taking over as the lead girl now, and Rachel's character meets Kylie's character, and Kylie's cameraman, Corey, played by the fantastic Jeff Davis, they kind of hit it off and plot. And we don't really ever know what they're plotting. We assume the whole time that they're plotting this TV show that they're working on, that we eventually see, the Stab Project. But in reality, they're actually plotting this TV show so that they can help plot the murders. And they somehow talk Shannon into being part of this TV show that they're trying to put together. That's a Stab reality competition show where people can compete to win roles in the next Stab movie that Rachel is now going to take over writing because my character has died. And Kylie has written books based on the actual murders that happened in Stab 5 called The Manchester Massacre, which is very reminiscent of Gail Weathers writing the books about the murders that inspired the Stab movies and the Scream movies. See where we're going with this? The reality TV show idea was something that I wanted to do, and I thought it would be cool. We had never really done a movie that was set just in one place. And yes, the opening of the movie takes place at a bunch of different locations, and we kind of travel around a little bit. But once we get to that house, once the cast and Rachel and Stephanie's character and Heidi's character all kind of move in and get locked in, we don't leave that house. And it's actually Karen's house from the first movie. And Karen was amazing yet again and let us film there. And we were in the middle of the summer, so it was sweltering hot, and there was no AC, and there was tons of cast members, and we had helpers, and there was a lot of people in there making it very hot. And the only slight type of cooling system we had was like a central fan that ran throughout the house, and it was loud, so you can actually hear it in the background of a lot of the shots, the fans in the house.
We have an enormous group of out-of-staters that physically travel to us. It wasn't just from Massachusetts. Of course, we see Chris from Maryland come back, but we also see Kwame and Fred come from New York City. We see Ashley come from Maryland. So this is the first movie where we've had so many people come out, and that brought its own set of challenges. One of the challenging things about having so many people from out of state is time restrictions. So for Stab 4, we filmed it in like 2 weeks. It was a fun project. In Stab 5, we kind of had the time that we needed to take to make sure that we were able to put everything, you know, into the movie that we really felt needed to be there and take as much time as we needed to film. But for Stab 6, we didn't have that ability. We can't keep the out-of-staters for months at a time. This is not, you know, a professional production. They're not paid actors. They came and spent their own money, and we can't keep them, you know, for longer than they already had committed. So that really pushed us, and it taught us more. Like, every movie teaches us something, but that was a huge lesson for us.
The process of filming Stab 6 was really, really intense. Like I said, it was really hot. We were all dripping sweat, and we were working long days and nights, like starting very, very early in the morning all the way to late at night / early in the morning again, just because we had so much to do and we had such little time to do it. We squeezed a lot of the production that was in that house into about a week. Maybe a little less. I can't fully remember. Maybe it was about 5 days. And not everybody had to be there every single day, but a good majority of the cast was there frequently. And some people like Nicole Linton, you know, I wrote parts for almost everybody. I was writing for the actors because I pre-cast the movie. I knew who wanted to be involved this time, and I knew who would do well where, or at least I thought I did. And aside from the out-of-state cast members who kind of just picked up parts that were written that I hadn't cast yet, everyone had their parts written for them. So it was an easier process, I think, for a lot of people. Maybe not for Rachel and Heidi because and Stephanie, because their parts were just so big. Like, they had pages of dialogue, and Heidi had these big, long monologues and stuff like that to give to the cast of the TV show. And people like Nicole Linton, who played Maria, had a very short amount of time that they were available to do this. She's a mother, she has kids, she worked a lot of jobs, but we wanted her in it, so we wrote her a part that she was able to film all of her stuff basically in one day. And she actually talks about, there was a scene after she was dead, we were filming this other scene, and I put her in it, and I don't know why. We made her sit down and insisted she was in the scene, and then we started filming it, and about a quarter of the way through the scene, we're like, wait a minute, Nikki, you're not in the scene, you're dead. Like, what are you still doing here? Like, go sit on the side until we're ready to film your death scene. So it was kind of funny that she snuck her way in there and then, like, kind of didn't say anything. I think she knew she was dead too. She wanted that extra screen time, but she gets it, trust me. She's in a lot of our other movies, so.
It's also the first time that for throat slits, we started using piping or tubing to squirt blood out, and so that was interesting to learn how to do. I remember so many times the tube would, you know, fall out and completely fall out of the actor's clothing and start squirting, and we were getting it everywhere, or, you know, somebody would be holding onto it, and by the time the blood started to squirt, it would be so slippery that it, you know, the whole tube would slip. It was a mess. So I would say Stab 6 is probably marked by, you know, blood tubes. Is the most vivid memory I have.
Hi, I'm Nicole Linton, and I played Maria in Stab 6. Maria was a sassy girl that took no shit from anybody, and she liked to challenge, like, the bitchy ones, but she definitely enjoyed the chiller side of things because she was very into her herbal remedies and cared to smoke quite a bit, but as you can tell, that ends up not working out so well for her. Maria was actually written for me by Josh because I had a very busy schedule with working and taking care of my kids and being a single mother, so we tried to condense everything that I could do into a couple days, as well as he knows me very personally, and Josh knows that I'm also one that can relate to the feistier side of people. I definitely can feel like it was easy to get into there because I could channel my bitchy energy, which we all know that I can definitely channel without needing it to be pulled out of me for a character. So that was definitely something. So we're going back a lot of years, and I do remember that it was a lot of fun. We went down to the basement, we were doing our smoking scene, we had a fog machine, I believe. There was a lot of, like, you know, like tensions going on with kind of like the whole like directing and like production going on, and like, you know, people making sure everybody's ideas were gone across. But when Josh does a production, he wants it to be a certain way, and he will be listening to people's ideas, but at the end of the day, if Josh wants it a certain way, that's the way it is. So take it or leave it. So we had, you know, a little bit of like whatever, just disagreements at moments, but we worked through it, we slid on past that, and then we did our scene. And I remember it was not Josh in the suit, it was a different actor Fred that was in the suit that came over and was able to stab me in the chest. We had this really cool pump thing that we could put a tube up, and we had blood, I believe it was like in a pouch or something like that, if I recall, and we just had to like splat it, so that when he got me with the knife, it was like blah, and it was pretty awesome how that all worked out. I liked it because, you know, of course, it's just classic scary movie thing. If you're having sex or you're doing drugs or other things, you know the list, you end up dying, and so that was where I met my demise. And it was one of the better times of dying in all these times that I've done it, just because I was indoors. So as much as I complained about how hot it was while we were like practicing lines and doing different filming in different areas, at the end of it, I kind of am grateful thinking about it now. The best part of filming was being able to be with Josh, hang out with the other people. It was a lot of fun just kind of putting it all together, watching it happen, even if it's not your scene, watching somebody else's scene happen where they're like doing their thing. I remember like, you know, trying to run down the stairs in heels and then like being like, ooh, let me see. And then just everything, like when people had moments where they couldn't remember their lines. I'm pretty sure that Ashley Younger at one point smoked a bit of marijuana beforehand and she just couldn't remember anything. And it was like, and like it was the fun. So then therefore moving forward, we implemented the rule, no smoking before shooting. The worst part was how fucking hot it was. It was ridiculously sweltering, just like a pig in an oven when we were upstairs. Like we were so grateful for the location that we were able to film at, but like it was just too much. I was just dying. It was just like, and all the people around you, everybody just breathing, and like there was like 3 fans half-ass working. It was a good attempt, but like we should have all been informed to bring camo bags. It was pretty short and sweet with that one because he did like do it in such a way where I was only there for a couple days of filming, and I didn't like, you know, last long throughout it, but it was always, I liked the thing where I got to watch afterwards, like where after I was dead, they still had my like picture on the mantle. And, you know, just kind of like, oh, what happened to her? Like, stuff. It was all of a sudden, I'm in this scene where it's like one of these scenes that I liked because I was like, oh, look at that. It's after I'm dead and I'm on the mantle. But, like, then they put me in the scene. And I'm like, what is going on here? I wasn't going to say anything just because I was kind of like, what's the plot twist, you know? And then next thing you know, they were like, wait, Maria's dead. And I'm like, yeah, about that. So they had to nix that whole thing and redo it, but it was funny. It was fun to be a part of, and then be like, oh yeah, well, you know, I wasn't gonna say anything. I thought you had a bigger plan.
There was a lot that happened in Stab 6 that was great. We were in Karen's house. She was, you know, nice enough to let us film so much of the movie there. That's where all of the reality TV show happened. And what was cool about Heidi and Rachel's characters is really until the end we were perceived as good people. And you kind of see at the end that Rachel had this idea to just kind of shove a bunch of people into a confined environment where they weren't allowed out. And she did that not because she really wanted to create a show, but because she wanted chaos to happen. This is kind of where she starts going a little crazy. She's never unintelligent though. She always knows what's going on. But you see, she kind of becomes devious and she wants chaos to happen so that she gets the best shots. She wants, you know, the deaths to happen. She's hoping that there's a killer amongst the mix so that, you know, it'll make great TV. So that's a really interesting side of Rachel's character in Stab 6. She kind of starts to unravel, but never so much that she loses control. Stab 6, it's contrasting in so many ways to Stab 5. In Stab 5, we thought we had, you know, for Stab 6, we thought we had learned our lesson in Stab 5, where we filmed in the winter, and, you know, that had its own challenges and problems. We thought, you know, we'll film in the summer, it'll be great. No. You can't film with AC. Air conditioning makes so much noise that we were already having audio issues that we literally could not film a single scene with the AC on. So I remember sometimes we would turn the AC on and then sneak into an area that was AC'd and then turn it off. But there was this huge room on the second floor of Karen's house that was like a playroom, and that's where everybody kind of waited to film their scenes, and it was boiling hot in there. And so now we have cranky actors that are sweating. I don't know how many, there's probably in the bloopers of me literally like wiping my melting makeup off. Not only are people cranky, but they're tired because the heat's making them tired. People are getting jittery, they're forgetting their lines. So even though we thought we had fixed the problem, we actually created a whole new one. Filming of Stab 6 was so crazy. It probably was the most fun because we were, again, it felt like Stab 4, we were stuck in a house. And we kind of had to bond. So Stab 6 was fun, even though it wasn't a lot of fun, if that makes sense.
The entire time we filmed Stab 6, it was 1,000,000 degrees outside and inside, and we were all dripping sweat. So there was really, timing's a weird thing for us with weather, and we try to think about that more as production goes on in other movies. The cast of Stab 6 was absolutely phenomenal. Like, so many different people brought so many different things to their roles, and everybody plays a part that maybe you'd expect them to play, but then they played in this way that just like blows your mind. Like Alex Staff, who plays the dorky girl character Bridget, is just like, she's the sweetest girl in real life, but she is not a dweeb like that at all. So she did such a good job being so like meek and innocent. And then Chris O'Brockie did such a good job distinguishing his Eric character from his Derek character from Stab 5. And he had a lot of fun with it. He even wore a man wig through the whole thing, which was just funny, so he could look like himself but still be his twin brother and be slightly different. And Kwame's character just slays me through the whole movie. Like, he is just so funny and a blessing to work with. We love Kwame.
Kwame brought so much to his character, it was crazy. He had ideas that just never stopped, and when we opened it up to people in the beginning to kind of get out their ideas, literally everything Kwame said that he wanted to bring to his character was genius, and we let it happen. He was never written, in the nerdy way that he portrayed the character, but it brought so much to that character that even though it might have felt like he was really just kind of an ensemble actor, he brought himself to the forefront because of that. So props to Kwame, and props to letting our new process work of allowing people to kind of input without ruining the flow of the filming.
Fred was freaking amazing, and Fred and Kara Shields play the killers. One of my teachers actually plays Mrs. Dube. My 3rd grade math teacher plays Mrs. Dube.
Another thing that we did in Stab 6 that we hadn't really done in the first 2 that we made is we started really being secretive about the ending. We wrote the ending but would not allow anybody but Josh or I or the people involved in the ending to see the script. Like, everybody else that got a script, that wasn't in their script, so they had no idea, and the cast was constantly trying to guess. What was interesting is Fred's character, Chasen, was one of the killers, and obviously, like I've stated, Fred and Kwame in real life were friends. They lived together in New York City, and Fred managed to make it out before production of the whole movie even started to film the ending scene without Kwame realizing where he was going. And so he and Kara, who played Hayden, filmed this scene before the whole movie got filmed. So the ending was done way before the rest of the movie was filmed. Donna, in the end scene, was amazing also. She had no acting experience, and she really got into it. She was so fun to watch because she was so excited. And I still to this day remember, she has this part where she, if you watch it, she pushes Kylie Scott, Heidi's character. And the first or the second time she did it, she tripped on the way in to do it, and she pushed her so hard that Heidi actually flew, literally got air and flew into a metal filing cabinet. And I will never forget the sound of the thud it made, watching, this little 100-pound blonde girl just fly into metal. And I remember how badly Donna felt about it. Of course, at first, everyone's reaction is, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" Followed by immediate outbursts of laughter from everyone, probably except for Heidi, of course. She was kind of licking her wounds.
Hi, Donna Dube here. My real name is Donna, by the way, but not Dube. I just want to share a couple of favorite memories of being Donna Dube. One of my very favorite memories was going to Goodwill to look for an outfit to portray Donna Dube. And I found this most beautiful white brocade blazer, so fitted, so lovely. I still own it. I actually do. I love it. It's all stained with blood, but whatever. I know this sounds bad, and I apologize ahead of time, But when you get to kill and be killed in like the span of 20 minutes, that's a good day, quite honestly. It was amazing. Josh is amazing. He's a genius. Rachel was like amazingly wonderful to me. It's a great memory for me. And I can at least say that I have a page up on IMDb. Love you, Josh. Always.
Filming in the basement, that was a lot of stuff going on. Hayden coming at me with her, I don't know, my character didn't like her at all, and I just didn't understand what was going on. I thought that we found good people to film this little series or whatever we were gonna do with it, and everybody ends up being like a fruitcake, honestly. Like, Donna comes out, and my God, I hadn't seen her in forever. So Corey kills her, and then he comes for me because he thinks that he's gonna become famous by making a film about murder. That's right. It was a little cooler in the basement to film than the rest of the house, but it was very compact. It was very tight in there, and just getting shots was a little hard, I remember, and Josh had to be kind of like over our shoulder, and we were getting very close. Everybody ends up being a killer, and I'm running from everybody. Pretty much everyone tries to kill me. It's like, watch the film if you haven't seen it. Then I have this crazy fight scene with Corey, and he's attacking me, and of course my brain goes right back to Chris Dube. So now Chris Dube's on top of me. We actually had to film that. You're not gonna see my memory, right? So I have Chris Dube on me, and then I'm over here, and it's just like this huge wrestle. Gets exciting, it gets rough, and your adrenaline just starts pumping, and I feel like you could run right through the building when you're doing like a fight scene with Josh, because Josh just really takes his time, and you have to get into it. You have to do it from all these different angles, and you can't mess it up. It has to look perfect, because, you know, you don't want it to look like crap, and you think, oh, that didn't look real. I hope you think that the last fight scene looked real. I mean, we stabbed the crap out of each other. We were like two pieces of butchered meat at the end of that. I'm really unsure of how I made it, but there's always a little hope in Shannon. So it's the bloodiest film of all three that I was involved in, and that's the one that really gave me stains for days. I even have bumps and bruises because, I mean, the fight scenes were crazy. The choreography was just intense. Flipping over couches, running into the kitchen, getting pulled down the stairs, smacking my head, hitting my back. I mean, we pretty much did everything that we possibly could have done to wow you. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Steph and I had this epic death scene that was really physical. I remember just like, we did a lot, and we just kind of made it up as we went along, and no one got hurt, which is awesome and surprising. I just remember at the end of it, though, there was so much blood on the floor that I almost pulled my groin, my favorite muscle. I almost pulled it, just trying to maintain my balance as Steph and I are just, stabbing each other repeatedly, and that was a lot of fun. And I just remember going outside and getting hosed down after, stripping down and just getting hosed down because we were just caked with blood in our hair, clothes. I gotta look and see if I still have those clothes, by the way, because they might be worth something to my mom at least. I don't know.
At the end, you see a showdown with Jeff's character, and you see, Stephanie's character, Shannon, going back and forth with each other with the knife. And I think I said earlier, the only place that we were not allowed to get blood was in the kitchen, because they had just remodeled the kitchen. And Karen was so nice about us using our house that we really wanted to respect that, so we put down tarps. What we didn't anticipate is that when you add blood to a tarp and you're standing on the tarp, you have no stability whatsoever. So it was the weirdest, most disturbing version of a slip and slide I have ever seen in my life. There's this part where we literally could not get them falling to the floor gracefully. They were supposed to stab each other back and forth and like slowly melt down to the floor. That was not possible on this tarp. the moment blood hit the tarp, you literally were slipping and sliding. So we had to film that scene so many times, and we really couldn't afford to, because once you have blood on your costume, you have blood on your costume. So we kept trying to film around the places they had already, you know, stained themselves with blood. So they're just stabbing each other, and they completely at one point just eat it. They absolutely eat it. They fall, they slip on the tarp, they have blood all over them, and we just kind of decided we needed to move on and that we had what we could get of that. So that was probably one of the funniest things. Not at the time, I would say it wasn't funny because we hadn't thought about it and it was frustrating, but now, like, seeing it back in your head, it was hysterical. In order to make sure that our stories can progress into the next Stab film, we knew that we needed to find a way to write in a way for us to get away with what we had done. So the idea was that we were going to scoop up the blood on ourselves and claim that we were victims that actually made it out alive, even though we were never in any real danger, but obviously the police don't know that. So I remember, like, getting in there. I scooped up huge scoops of blood. I had it all over my face. It was running down my chest. I ruined that bra. Maybe TMI, but it's absolutely true. That bra has never not been red again. I literally was soaked. Like, I looked like I had come out of, like, some weird horror festival. And Heidi just refused. Like, and she didn't openly refuse. She wasn't like, no, I'm not going to do that. She just would, like, take a little bit and just kind of, like, put it gently on herself. And I'd look over and I literally have blood splattered. It's all over me. And she's got, like, one little mark on her head, just kind of, like, making sure she still looks pretty. And we run out. And so I think that it's a funny contrast to see on film that I am completely covered in blood and she's claiming to be a victim but has, like, one little spot and still looks effortlessly gorgeous, you know, like the reporter she plays in the movie. So that was another funny thing. And I remember because it was hot that it was sticky, and I actually completely forgot this. I got pulled over on the way home, and it was a lady cop of Manchester. I don't remember her name, but she was the greatest. And she just kind of looked at me, and I looked at her, and some time passed, and then she was like, you know, where are you going? And I said, you know, I'm going home. And she asked me if I was okay, and then just kind of, like, stared at me after she asked. And I said, oh, I just filmed a horror movie. Like, I'm fine. Like, there's no puncture wounds. And she just hit the side of my door and said, okay, you have a good night, and let me go. But I remember thinking, I'm in trouble. Like, this woman's gonna book me. She thinks I just committed some crazy murder. So that was a really funny story to have to tell, especially when I, you know, got home and had to tell Josh, like, by the way, you know how I looked when I left set? Yeah, I got pulled over. It's fine.
So I do remember being in Karen's house and it being very hot, and Josh was filming other scenes downstairs in the basement. We were all upstairs and we started getting rambunctious, and they had a freak out and we had to shut it down. So we had to be, like, really quiet.
Once I had to literally pull everyone aside and scream at the group of everyone for being loud during filming, because it was just, they were having so much fun that I literally had to be like, all right, guys, chill. Like, it's gone on for too long. You guys have to be quiet. And I remember, like, people even cried. Like, Mandy cried when I yelled at the whole group of everyone. So it was upsetting, and I try never to be that guy, but on a rare occasion, you have to be.
So then we decided to, like, do these little stupid quiet games and listen to music in the headphones, and I don't know, we tried to keep it to a minimum, but we were always pissing off Josh, unfortunately. I mean, you gotta understand it was really hot. We were there for hours, so.
And days.
Days, and I mean, there were snacks. Karen really did a nice spread. She always took care of all of us. But it was a lot. The heat just gets to you. And then there's all the different struggles that I go through. 1 minute I'm in the bathroom downstairs and I'm having these Chris Dube flashbacks, and he's not really there.
I had so much fun in filming the kind of death scene, if you will. I just remember it was hot. It was so hot. I mean, and we couldn't have the ACs on because it was too noisy. And I just remember Chris Dube having to, and Chris, I am so sorry. I still think about this sometimes. It's so horrible. I've been doing a lot of running around, you know, while we were practicing how everything was going to go. And there was a scene where he and I kind of had to switch. Steph was having a flashback of me and then him and then me and then him and me and then him. So I had this shirt on and I was sweating, profusely sweating. So in between shots, he would have to take my shirt and put it on. And we had to do that a bunch of times. And I feel so bad, so bad.
I did have fun filming Stab 6. It was a lot because there was so many different people, so you really had to learn patience with that set. It was a little different. But you could go to different spots. I remember listening to music with other cast members and just chilling out at the cars while other things were being shot. And then sometimes we would break off into pairs and go over the scenes together. I mean, if you're with your scene partner, might as well, right? So we would get some of that, you know, on its way and get the energy going. So when Josh did call us, we were ready to go. There's nothing more aggravating than taking forever to film a bunch of stuff and then, you know, your director has to wait on the next couple people. So I tried to be always on point with Josh and always have my lines done for Josh. So he could pretty much just show me blocking and, you know, where he wanted me to go, where he wanted me to take the scene. So I just always wanted to have everything as ready as possible for Josh.
So for me, the most fun death scene of Stab 6 to film was definitely Nicole Ward's character, Tamra. It's the first time that we really played with doing something other than normal stabbing. We gutted her. And it took forever for us to find intestines that looked real enough to be in the movie. Because of course we're very low budget. We're paying for everything out of our own pockets. You know, we have just normal jobs. We're not, you know, independently rich. So we finally found some that were good cost. They looked great. And I still remember to this day, we had to pre-soak them and they were just sitting in my sink at home. And so everybody, you know, that lived in my house would walk by and just see intestines soaking in my sink. And then we would dip them in blood. And they got like the weirdest texture and they felt real and it was just gross. And I remember Nicole Ward wanted to jump rope with them. And Karen had actually told us when we started filming in her house that we were allowed to get blood anywhere but in the kitchen, which we'll talk about that later. But we still, you know, we wanted to be respectful. The end scene or the death scenes at the end, the big showdown left a ton of blood in the basement and that's a cement floor. It's not something that we can get up. So we still were trying to be respectful. So we told her she couldn't jump rope, but I'm pretty sure there's some outtakes of her like starting to jump rope and then realizing it wasn't really a good idea. But I remember we put different layers of shirts on and brought the intestines through so it looked like she was being gutted, and it was gross but also really, really fun.
Again, the whole experience of Stab 6 was like a summer camp thing, and I think that was what enticed a lot of people into doing it. And we had a much bigger fan base, so like I said, we had a lot more out-of-state people, and it really did just become this huge extended family. Like, everybody got along, everybody helped out. You know, later on you'll hear actors complain in other movies about like helping us clean up and set up and stuff. But this film, this production, Stab 6, I think the team was so gung-ho, it was nuts. Like, while I was busy like setting up lights, the cast had pictures of the set from the day before, so they would start putting stuff out for me because they knew where it went, and the living room had to look the same. So this Ghostface had to go there, and this picture had to be hung on this wall, and blah, 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 blah. And then clean up too, like everybody was on it, everybody was really willing to help, and there was blood flying everywhere. And Karen was so cool when we filmed in her house. She literally told us we could get blood on anything we wanted. So there's blood all over the floor, there's blood on the walls, there's blood everywhere in Stab 6 because we really wanted to up the gore factor. And getting the opportunity to have a location like that and a person who owns that location that kind of just says go for it is every amateur horror movie writer, director, producer, star's dream, because you just get to have fun, you know? And that's what it was. The cast had fun. Karen even provided them with food and snacks and stuff that we hadn't quite thought of. We brought a few things for people, you know, but Karen really went above and beyond and made Stab 6 awesome for everybody that participated in it, and we can't ever, ever, ever thank you enough for what you did, Karen. Stab 6 also marks the first time that you ever see two Ghostface killers on screen at the same time together, so that was cool during the big massacre scene. And leading into the big massacre scene is probably my favorite death scene that we've ever filmed, where Nicole Ward's character gets gutted. And that was just so much fun to film, and I think the effect of it played out so well that it's something that I'm actually really proud of. My favorite death scene in this is the death scene that is in the basement with Chris Wilson and Ashley Younger. And they're two of the three stoner characters in the movie. Maria was the other, and she died also in the basement, but separately. But the tag team duo of them dying is just great. Ashley Younger's character, Elise, gets a phone call from the killer, and she thinks it's part of the TV show. She thinks it's like a challenge for the show. So she tells Chris's character, oh my God, you know, it's an audio challenge right now. Ghostface is on the phone. They're so high, they don't know what's going on. They think it's funny. And Chris's character doesn't want to play the game, and he ends up getting stabbed. And Ashley's character can't tell, and she's like, what's the matter with you, you know? But that scene, to me, even writing it, I remember sitting there and just like cracking up, laughing, writing it, because it was just so funny, even on the page, to think that this girl thought the whole thing was a gimmick, and then she doesn't realize it until she actually gets stabbed. Like, she watches her co-star get stabbed to death in front of her and still thinks it's part of the game, and doesn't realize it until the killer actually stabs her that it's a real knife and that she's actually getting killed. That whole section was actually a little bit different in the script too. The sex scenes between Kara's character and Fred's character weren't originally cut in that way, but I thought it was a funny way to kind of cover up the screaming. And we worked it into the script too, like Stephanie's character even asked, like, did you hear that? He was like, so we have competition in the other room. Like, that was an original part of the script. We kind of added that in so we could have a cover up for Ashley getting murdered. And it was also a great way to make it look like Fred's character and Kara's characters weren't the killers, because they can't be if someone's in the basement getting murdered unless they have a partner. And it was funny because it was both of them, but they did have a partner. They had a third, which was completely unexpected and hadn't been done in the Scream movies, so that was something new and exciting for us.
Doing any kind of make-out sexual scenes is always a little awkward at first, but once you get like the first kiss done, it's kind of giggly and silly, and then you gotta do what you gotta do. But he was nice and very attentive, I guess. He didn't make it feel awkward or anything, but man, was I really stumped that he tried to kill me. And I'm starting to wonder, where am I where I'm attracting all these killers? Because I mean, Josh is a killer, you know, Dube's a killer, and now my new boyfriend Jason's a killer. Like, can I find anybody that doesn't want to destroy me? And why do I want to keep coming back? It's like I have a hunger to be chased and then survive it and then do it again. I don't know.
The script kind of evolved. Like, he kind of like snuck a little bit in here and there, and I ended up being a killer. Had no idea at the beginning I was actually going to do it, but I done went bad. I'm pretty sure I ad-libbed. I don't think I stayed true to the script. But I really didn't need to do much because it was already really funny. I just had to kind of add what I thought Corey would bring to the table, which I tried to play this incredible dork. And it actually worked out because in the end he kind of had this break where he turned into the, you know, a killer of substance. No, just kidding. Corey Waters, outski. Or in traditional Corey Waters fashion, see you later, alligator.
So a funny scene in Stab 6 that I really enjoyed making and that there's funny stories from is the basement scene where some of the stoners decide to sneak down to the basement and smoke weed. And so you see Ashley's character Elise there, you see Nicole Linton's character Maria, and Chris Wilson, who plays Mike, all there, you know, just enjoying some smoking time together. And there's this one point where during Ashley's death scene, she has to push the killer, and the killer is actually Josh at this point. You know, he's playing the killer in the road, and sort of like with the gusto that Donna pushes Ashley pushes Josh so hard he also gets air, and there's something hanging from the basement that hits his head and it cracks, and everybody hears that noise again, and again we have that moment of, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I don't know if to this day Josh has ever been the same. When we first worked with Ashley on Stab 6, it was a lot of fun. She brought so much life into her character. She was the comedic relief so many times that it was really enjoyable to watch. And with anything, not all good things, stay good. But for Stab 6, it was really great to work with her. Stab 6 was a lot of fun. More lessons, obviously. Like I said, every movie we learn lessons from. And we had Karen, and Karen and Frank were great. They were behind the scenes. Even though Karen, was an actress, long after she wasn't acting in our film, she really supported us. So shout out to Karen and Frank and everybody who made Stab 6 what it was.
Stab 6 just had like a lot of cool levels of stuff and a lot of levels of freedom for the actors too. We tried to let them ad-lib a little bit more in this one and bring more life to their characters. So much of what they say I wrote for them, but the way they say it kind of is interpreted by them, and they add in a few things here and there. And then everybody that was in that house got to do a confessional, and that was really fun. Those were all ad-libbed. Everything that was said in those, we would kind of give them a little bit of coaching of what we want them to talk about, and then they would just go nuts. They would just get into character and sit in front of the camera and talk to the camera like they were on a reality TV show giving a confessional. And then I think the most fun part of that to me was editing it all together and seeing how cutting certain people back to back would make it even funnier, because one would say one thing and then someone else would say another, or even if they agreed, it was funny too, because you're like, oh man, that must be really bad. And then ending it with Rachel's manic depressive breakdown over what's going on her set was just epic.
So every once in a while in one of these productions, a character literally just cannot get a line. We will try everything. We'll try saying it and asking someone to repeat it exactly as we've said it. We'll try and explain the motivation for it, but every once in a while somebody just does not get that line. They don't understand it. They can't deliver it the way that we see it being delivered. So in Stab 6, that was Heidi. Heidi had a couple of lines that she just really struggled with. One of them was a question to Rachel. She was supposed to be asking her, did you finish the script? And she just could not get it out. And at one point, I actually ended up having to take one of Heidi's lines because she didn't understand it was supposed to not be a question, and she kept asking the question. I think she was trying to say like, lucky, that's what you got, but instead she kept saying, lucky?
Very few times have other people got to play the killer in the costumes. I tried to let the other killers always be in the costume at least once, so they can get the feeling of what it's like and see A, what I go through, and B, what they would be going through if they were the killers. So in Stab 5, Chris and Steve both got to take a turn behind the mask. And then in Stab 6, Fred got to be behind the mask, and Chris O'Brockie actually was behind the Scarecrow mask. Christian was also behind the mask aside from me. So Kara didn't want a chance to play someone, which I thought would have been cool, because it would have been interesting to see if you could tell it was a girl under our costume. And then even in the Stab movies after that, we always try to get the killer in the costume at least once so they can see what it feels like.
Overall, I thought Stab 6 was a smash. I thought that we killed it, actually. I don't know if I would change anything. I think it's good as it is. It was a lot of work that we had to push into in a weekend and a lot of hours. So, I mean, we're not getting paid here, so we're doing the best that we can. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you watch it again. And I hope you watch my next interview.
Taking all these characters, like the Shannon characters, to so many different places, and the Rachel character to so many different places that they haven't been before, was so intriguing and interesting. And honestly, I think Stab 6 is probably my favorite stab that we've done so far.